system is working.
So this goes on.
Oh, that makes sense. Yes. Last time we did the wrong way. This is good.
You're already on.
Thank you.
You can just move it a little closer to you. Yeah. This is the question at the end of the teaching. How to help a loved one who sent the best. Basically.
Good morning. So first we begin with supplication to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So please join with me. Om Nazenam Darajinu Rube, Traji Jujuna Jubayi, Sangi Chodangi do Papeso, Kuna Chaseta, Trashisho, de Megabet. Jambin Mega Rabadamba, Kunagumbo Jujino Majan, Ubodar Bazarabedani, Simjadam Jero. Hism the Basarab Day, Sinsam the Beta Sheep, Devar Shupakela Chazalo, Jambejuno. She is in one Gumbo Jambebe, saying in Portabana, Namginum. Ubeduji Begalujina, no Buddha Varity, Yumai, Chazalam. Chanju Simpagala, Chazalo, Renjin Jotashi Sirgina, the Jumbazayo. Niradu da Hunzo Bebe, Minugeze, Wunjurcolo, the Regina Juju. Should you watch a Jingajima, Gizongo, Timbebe, Trashi, Hamugela, Chazalo, Sambashim Body. Midona Yabu Yugo, Payaboda, no one Mimizan, and this is Elas. Tijola don't know Jose, be wanted to shoot the Gazenze, Sasum. Jiding Gala Chazalo, Dajating the Jawazambala, getting your words. To them, Bebe, some Asian to Trashi daily bosom Sabarsho, Dajating the show. Getting your words about Kunjini, to them, Bebe, some Asian to Trashi daily bosom Sabarsho, Dajating the show. Getting your words about Kunjini, to them, Bebe, some Asian to Trashi daily bosom so parashu. Jumnende Paragumbo Jizin Jabayana Chazalo, Kangilo to the Timring it on Tarasabi, Chingy to go Jesus Jinigo to go on the Baza, Kodosabus. Mundum Dungan Gizewe, Josokona, Pujik the United Young Sung, Rutrashado, Numuno, Legajero, Resation, Morimusid. Chingy Jose Ratinum, Dennis such a 30 in Dennis Gazette Tebeku, Chutajo. Jambriana do Umarabzanadi, 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 Umarabzanadi. Kurgumda de Jiji pa Ubedana Shara Retinum, Lemazamajame. Gumbo Jabayana Chasa de Cosetta Bardubam, Jose. Kurgumda de Jiji pa Ubedana Shara. Lemazimajame Chuku, Gumbo Jabayana Chasa de Cosetta Bard. Jose Tivardana, Gumbo Jamiati, Kame Pariato, Cosetta. Jose Tivardana, Gumbo Jamiati, Kame Pariato, Cosetta Bard. Gumbo Jamiati, Kame Pariato, Warasho. Palensavella Marimboche, Dagachi would have paid the Jula, Cotinchimbi. Cousin Tugan would drop Saltus. So wonderful to sing, everyone. So on Sunday, today is Father's Day, I heard, so happy Father's Day to all the fathers. In the words of my perfect teaching, a perfect teacher, it explained that all beings have been one's parents at one time or another in the existence of our life. And so, in the Buddha Dharma, also in the Hindu teaching, one believes there is reincarnation. In Judaism, Christianity, others, they don't believe in reincarnation, but I think actually they do, because you may not particularly reincarnate as a human being or some other in your next life, but definitely there's a purgatory where you can go. So you reincarnate in purgatory, or you reincarnate in heaven, or you reincarnate in hell realm. So it's the same, basically the same thing. It's just how you like to look at it. It's the same consciousness taking place in another place. So that's what reincarnation means. And the reason the reincarnation, I think is wonderful. Even in Judaism and Christianity and other religions speak, they all speak about in one way or another, as we just talk about, emanating in another place. And the reason is very much comes to that it's basically, from the Buddhist point of view, it's a teaching on cause and effect. It's a teaching on relative truth. Teaching on cause and effect, if you do bad, then you will end up in state of suffering. And those places, what is known as hell or hungry ghost or lower realms, are places where one experiences a lot of suffering, unimaginable suffering compared to human beings. Three higher rebirths and three lower rebirths. Three higher rebirths are human and demigods and God's realm. Three lower rebirths are animals and hungry ghost and hell realm. And then, since our cause for all of those is our mind, and why there is not just one form, we can ask the question. There is, because the mind has no limit at all to what it will think and what it will not think. In other words, there's no limit to the imagination of our afflictions. Afflictions, an incredible imagination. Generally, it says that the root cause, of course, is the ignorant, and from that sprang the three poison: aggression, and desire, attachment, or desire same, and then ignorance is the root cause. And from that, the five passion, envy and jealousy on top of the three poison. And then from it, like 84,000 passions and neuroses. That's also, in fact, there is even no end, even 84,000 passions and neuroses. It goes beyond that, because there's no end to imagination of afflictions. All kinds of aggressions we arise. You see, like anger can spark with many, many different causes, not just necessarily one thing. We can make like a world war to a particular country, a smaller case, and then war among communities, and war among family, and finally war with oneself. So there is no end to afflictions. the cause of all those phenomenal, like we experience infinite phenomenal experience, or whether it's external phenomena or whether it's internal phenomena, is due to infinite arising of those afflictions. And then when we speak about afflictions, I think it's important to study afflictions. Afflictions are relative. There's a saying in the sutras, without studying relative, you will not know absolute. So we need to study samsara. What is samsara? Which is relative phenomena. When Buddha gave the Four Noble Truth teaching, the first two Noble Truth teachings are relative truth. And then the third one is the absolute truth. But he didn't start with the absolute truth, he started with the relative truth. Such as, first he said, understand the suffering, the root cause that we all want to tackle and get free from that. So this is the basic aspiration of all sentients, to be free of suffering. So therefore, Buddha first said, understand the suffering, recognize suffering. Of course, we know suffering, what it is, but specifically, there are much more detailed version of suffering, and particularly he's talking about the conditioned suffering of all of them. Like suffering upon suffering. If you are very thirsty, and then even a dog will know if they're thirsty, they need to go look for water. And then if they feel hot, they want to look a shade underneath the tree. So suffering upon suffering, even animals know that. And change of suffering, the pain, such as, for example, you eat something and it didn't suit you, and then you want to deal with that correctly or incorrectly. Even dogs know that. And let's not talk about human beings, such as we would take for diarrhea some antibiotic or whatever the medicine to deal with that. That's general. These two suffering are general. All beings know that. Now, the one in particular is called the conditioned suffering. Conditioned suffering, that's only a human intelligence have the ability to understand and reflect and know how to deal with that. That is the root cause of samsara, the root suffering of samsara. The definition of samsara comes from the conditioned suffering. And that's what Buddha was really talking about, the conditioned suffering. That even in general, without going through detail, even the general happiness we think, the material happiness or sensorial happiness, it itself finally becomes a sense of suffering. That's what he was talking about, conditioned suffering. Because once you get attached to that, and it can lead to many other sources of suffering. And for example, of all the material or physical appearance, the one we crave the most, the one we attach the most is our own body. I mean, it's for your own body, if someone wants to kill you, either you give all your, these days, there's happening a lot of crimes in America, so either you give me your jewelry and your wallet, otherwise I kill you. Of course you say, take it. Your life is more precious. You take it. So, so this body that, in summer we put summer clothes, winter we put winter clothes, then we use all kinds of products in the market. keel products to put on face, and then I don't know rest. So many kinds of products to make beautification or to take care, and so you could look young and you could look good and you could look fresh and beautiful. But by nature, birth, four major suffering of human being: birth, old age, sickness, and death. The suffering of birth, when we comes out of mother's womb, and it's, I don't remember now, none of us remember when we came out, but we know at that time, because mother's womb is so soft and so nice, when we first come out, it's like, it says in the teaching, it's like putting on a thorn, like suddenly you fall on a thorn, how it is so rough outside. So there's a lot of suffering of birth, and also, the mother goes through tremendous pain and the child goes through tremendous pain. The suffering of birth, obviously, is there. Then suffering of birth, then gradually we get older, and of course, I think our youth is like a flower. Today, whenever I see a flower, I see our life. It goes so fast. It's like a springtime. No wonder people call spring chicken, right? When someone is very young. It's really like that. Our youth, when we are like a teenage, which is the prime of our beauty, and it just goes like that. And suddenly we are adult, goes like that. And then you reach like 40, 50, goes like that. Then comes 60s. Life is just like a blink of an eye, truly. It goes so fast. So therefore, the suffering of old age, and then suffering of sickness. So this body that we care so much, and we try to, fight to the last moment to preserve. Even physically you couldn't do, but mentally you try to do. Like the movie Expendable. All those Hollywood actors, the last ditch they want to show in the world. I saw Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, all of them. They have to do an action movie that they can do it. It's the last ditch, and that's it. And nobody wants to watch again because even they would like to, but that's it. This is how the mind fights. The ego makes you fight, So all those things, you can handle. So it brings suffering. There's tremendous suffering for them to make that movie. There's tremendous suffering, what people react, how they would think about that movie. So it's like continuous, this nature of suffering. That's what dukkha, samsara. Now, what is all this cause? Now today, then what is all the cause? When we speak about what's all this cause, we are then trying to look at reality. Then the question is, what is reality? What is life? What's the reality of life? We all try to question about that. And we all try to investigate what's the reality of life. Then when we look at the reality of life, today science is trying to analyze, investigate, and discover. And basically, science discovery of reality of life is very much external, objective, on objective reality. External phenomena, which basically sums up to atom. And then the fundamental atom. What is a fundamental atom? What's the nature of fundamental atom? And then, of course, the science come to the point that there is no inherent atom. Very clearly, even the very Higgs boson that they have found in Switzerland, they were so excited. Finally, they thought they found the God particle, means eternal particle, in other words, or God particle. And I thought that's not possible. And even Stephen Hawking says not possible, but he was surprised. They did find. And then I looked one day into today, our internet, Google, you can ask questions. So, what is the God particle or Higgs boson particle? It's not eternal. It's a probability. It's a probability, meaning many dependent. It's a dependent, but it's also very interesting. It's very interesting. I think, you see, when we look into things with our dualistic mindset, we are so habituated in dualistic mindset. We don't have much depth understanding of non-dual, though we can sense there is some awareness deeper, on a much deeper, subtle level, there is a non-dual level. But right now, we are so much into dualistic way of thinking, analyzing, experiencing, reflecting, like that. So when we speak about like finding probability, I think that is a really great word. Though whether person is realized or not, that's a different thing. But before that, for example, in the Heart Sutra, when Buddha speaks about ultimate reality, no form, no nose, no teeth, no mouth, no eyes, no nose, you all know that in the Heart Sutra, all the negation, none of, no this, no that, no that. What Buddha was talking about was no inherent nose. Can you imagine if there is an inherent nose when you have a sinus problem? It's a big problem. Good thing there's no inherent nose. Before I have sinus problem many years ago when I was studying in Nepal, so bad that I have to put a towel in front of my thing so let it drip while I was studying so I can just let it come in. So bad. So I thought, I want to really like make a needle red and put it in my nose. It's just like unbearable thing. So, so good thing there's no inherent nose. So that's what Buddha meant. Buddha, first he has to go through the negation because in the contrary side of emptiness is something that our attachment to something real that we are so used to every day. Every day we deal with, everything so real. And the problem, is it shouldn't be misunderstood. You love someone, wonderful. That's all right. But the thing is, then, when you go deeper, the love becomes attachment deep, and then it's become, with that comes with the attachments come aggression, and with the aggression come all kinds of afflictions are there to arise, which are the cause of all your suffering to manifest afterwards. That is a problem, why it says in the teaching, lesser attachment. But it never said that you should love less, you see. But it just said lesser attachment. Less attachment, you will love more, actually. You are much more open. You see the possibility of subtly non-dual. Can you imagine the bodhisattvas who achieve non-dual, like Avalokiteshvara and manifestation, many great bodhisattvas, their love to sentient being was so much. When someone asked for their eyes, they took their eyes and given. We cannot do that. So see how much limit our love is. We can only do to a certain extent. We train ourselves to be a better human being, but still we have limitation. We cannot become. So whose love is more? In the non-dual awareness or in the dualistic awareness? You see, you can analyze, look into that. There's still affliction, there's still limitation in our ignorance pervaded mindset. So therefore, the Tonglen practice, and really we have to look very carefully. And so then talking about now the science looking into external investigation of the reality of life, phenomena. Now they're starting to look on the subjective level. The first thing they're trying to learn about subjective level is the brain. So, but brain to a certain extent before they thought everything is determined by brain. But today's, I think now the science is beginning to see that brain alone cannot function. It needs the circumstance, or it needs the connection of awareness. There's a mind. Otherwise, there's nothing to trigger the brain. Even a dead body has a brain, you see, but it doesn't have the consciousness. So consciousness, our mind and body are interdependent. And when you talk about consciousness is not an object. It's not a physical realm, not a physical state. So in, like, for example, in the preliminary Dzogchen teachings, I can just explain to you a little bit. Preliminary Dzogchen teaching, it says, what's the color of the mind? Or what's the shape of the mind? One investigate. So you look, is the mind blue? You know, it could be interesting. Gigantic, cosmic blue mind. Or is the mind red? Is the mind white? You know, and you investigate. And is the mind shaped? Now, if there's a shape, what kind of shape it is? Is it round? Is it square? Or any particular shape you can think about. And you investigate one by one. And if it's shape, you should be able to see it. If there's a color, you should be able to see it. Mind is such that you cannot see the shape nor the color. And then today, through all the modern equipment, like our X-ray and our CT scan, and anything, no one can see the mind. In the brain, there's no form or no color or no form of a mind. Or in your heart, basically brain and the heart is the most vital aspect that we think if there is a mind, and neither in the blood, just a stream of water element. And then, you know, investigating each one of them, and whether it is skandha form, you know, where do you find the mind? You cannot. But if you see it's not there, it is there. It's pervaded all over. But then, you know, so it's become a mystery for a lot of people. What is mind? It is there, I cannot deny, I'm aware. But then if you say it is there, you go and grab it, you cannot grab it. So therefore, you know, this is what the, I think, fundamental questions and fundamental answer has to be achieved in order to know the mystery of life, in order to unlock that mystery, the nature of the mind. So Buddhism speaks on the nature of the mind a lot. And so therefore, now when we look at the mind, there are many aspects of the mind. For example, studying about the nature of the mind, I think you should all study. There's a book called, by Mipam Rinpoche, the Gate to the Learned Ones. Gate to the Learned Ones. I think it's like a map of emotions, mind, thoughts. Basically, it's very, very good to study that book. It's called Kinjuk, Tibetan word is Kinjuk. In English translation, entering the door to the learned ones. So you learn about these things. So, for example, when we speak about mind, there's the primary mind and secondary mind, for example, we speak about. Primary mind, for example, the sixth sense, our eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, mouth consciousness, nose, tongue, and then the mind consciousness. Particularly in the five, like eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, mouth consciousness, body consciousness. So for example, in the eye consciousness, when you just look like this, when you look at like that, in the first instant, you don't pick up the forms. It just glances, it just like goes out. And then the second, split second moment, then you see, oh, that's yellow, that's blue, that's green. The first instant, it doesn't pick up. Same thing with the sound. The first instant, it doesn't recognize what particular sound or speech that is. Only on the second, then it's, oh, that is, this is this talk, or this is this music, or this is this. So same thing with all our faculties. So then there's the question, is the first consciousness, first instant, like where there's no thought, is to make no judgment. Is that the nature of the mind? That is not the nature of the mind. There's just like a glance coming out of the alaya mind. And then definition of the mind, basically, let's say duality and non-duality. Non-duality is called Dharmakaya, duality is called the alaya mind. So much definitions are there, difference between mind and wisdom, alaya and Dharmakaya. Like Longchenpa explained, like 16 different kinds and many definitions. What is really the mind? What is really the nature of the mind? So, and we should know that because we have our mind, which includes all of them. So therefore, now when we speak about the mind, where there's no form, where there's no color, then the mind's own nature, and then, for example, like, craving. The point here, one of the points here I'm trying to make is understanding afflictions. For example, supposing, your mind just basically, let's say you wake up in the morning, you feel good, and then you go in the market, and there's a farmer's market, okay? Then you go in the farmer's market, you see a nice orange, nice grapes, figs and good brown bread and all the wonderful things hippies make in all those days. Today, no more hippies, but wonderful things. And that's just like you see, and someone come rushing by, and you see a person come rushing by, and there's orange or some good blueberries that you like. He comes and just like rushing and it falls down, You say, oops. Okay, what? Like that. And you just move. Now then the same thing. Moments earlier you bought that. Momentarily you bought that blueberry or orange, whatever you like. And then it's become yours in your mind. Now it's mine. Then this guy come and just drop that, hits you. It falls from your thing. This same orange, now since it belongs to you in your mind, mine, and you get angry. Crazy guy. You will curse or you say, what manners you have, depends how you react. But something terrible, not because this belongs to you in your mind. It's mine. the object is mind, and then mind, the deep inside. So you see, the mind itself doesn't really have the inherent quality of mind as such, but that's how we get used to seeing that false, deep affliction, which is fundamentally not in the nature of the mind, but it's just like the circumstance create that, habituated that thought, and we're so used to it. Now the same thing, maybe nothing, but it's become very big deal. And then with that comes the aggression, anger, and then you create tremendous chain reaction of negativity. And that's how our minds get completely tangled and absorbed into absorbed into affliction. That is the danger. That is the point. And that is the cause of our suffering. There's no other cause of suffering than the affliction itself. So therefore, when Buddha gave the Four Noble Truths, he said, understand the suffering, and the cause of the suffering is karma, affliction and cause and effect. Affliction and cause and effect. That's what Buddha said. There's no other cause to that. So now, then in the other context, so if you just say, for Buddhists, Buddha, please let my affliction goes away, it's not going to go away. For a Christian, may Jesus Christ please bless me so my affliction, it's not going to go away. You need to see the very nature of itself, how that affliction arises. And by seeing that, then one gets liberation from that. So Buddha said in some of the teaching, the sins or negative karma or beings cannot be washed by water. For example, in India, in the Ganges, they take a dip in the water. They think it will purify all their sins, it's not going to happen that way. In fact, I was recently in Banaras a few months ago. There's ghats where there's body burning, there's dead cows, so all the thing is going, and people dipping there. It's like one taste. It's something, if you've not been to India, that's something you need to see. It's quite something. Anyway, so Buddha said, sins of the being cannot be washed by water. No, the suffering of the beings can be given by protection. It can only be liberated by showing the true nature, Buddha's teaching, By that, you will find liberation by seeing your own true nature. So therefore, Buddha said, I've shown you the path of liberation, now it's up to you. Buddha can't do anything. Now you have to find through your own level of practice, whether it's Hinayana, Mahayana, practice of compassion or practice of discipline. In other words, Hinayana is practice of discipline, mainly based on ethical practice, and then Mahayana is based on compassionate practice. And then, of course, not just alone compassion, but the wisdom aspect of emptiness. And then the Vajrayana then goes higher and higher. But all just on one level of consciousness, all on one awareness, how one relates with awareness. So therefore, we see the affliction is not the inherent quality of our mind. Affliction just comes, just like the example of that person, before you own it or after you own it, that fruit. When you didn't own it, it fell down, you didn't care. It's not your blueberry. You see, it's no big deal. Oops, you feel a little bit, that's it, you move forward. Then after you own it, now it's become mine. And then you see, so where did that came from? Like that. So therefore, the notion of self, the notion of I, the notion of meanness, how it produced that mine or I, why Buddhism speak about no I, why Buddhism speak about there's no inherent I. It's not saying you don't exist. One should really understand very clearly. It's saying that The way you think something so deep, it doesn't exist in your nature of the mind. Because you can see that just from the example of the fruit. Before you own it, after you own it. And furthermore, when you look deeper and deeper, your mind, is when it's completely awakened, then the whole reality is seen. Then the whole dualistic false perceptions falls apart. So that depends step by step how you get deeper into your own mind. So therefore, practice of meditation becomes very important. Meditation is learning about you. Meditation is not learning about Buddha. Meditation is not learning about anybody else. Meditation is like mind your own business. Really, basically, Buddha Dharma is like mind your own business. Look. So therefore, meditation is so crucial. Without meditation, you will never get deeper into your mind. You will not understand your mind. So therefore, sitting practice, it's very, very important. So therefore, we also need to understand that afflictions are not inherent part of our mind. Afflictions are called, in the text, the English translation I've seen, they use adventitious, like suddenly they come, due to circumstance. And then those who are not fully enlightened, definitely, they can be affected by that. So like that, anyway. So therefore, now so that stain in our mind, we have so many stains. Stain created by aggression, stain created by craving, stain created by, of course, fundamental is ignorance. Now, ignorance spread all affliction. For example, the faculty of eyes, faculty of ears, eye consciousness can see things, but eye consciousness cannot hear things. Ear consciousness can hear things, ear consciousness cannot see things. Same thing, ear consciousness cannot smell, ear consciousness just it can hear. So it's each faculties, their own predominant functions are based on their own characteristic. It doesn't cover the other part. But the faculty of mind covers all eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, mouth consciousness, body consciousness. Likewise, affliction, the affliction of anger, when you have so much anger, you don't have desire at the same time. And when you have so much desire, you can't be angry at the same time. So they are contradictory. They are like different in characteristic. But the ignorance is pervading all affliction, like the mind faculty pervades in all affliction, like that. So ignorance, whether it's anger, whether it's desire, whether it's jealousy, the ignorance pervades all of them. But anger itself does not pervade desire like this. So each characteristic is different. So therefore, it all comes down to now really the ignorant part, the knowing, not knowing the mind nature. And of course, when we speak about ignorance, again, there are so many definitions of ignorance. Ignorance of not knowing cause and effect, which is a big problem for many people in day-to-day life. That's why the ethical practice is so important, because that brings balance into our life, that brings balance into our spiritual life, and that brings balance into our general life. Where there is no law and order, we can see that society cannot function well. Nobody's happy or safe in that community or in that society. Same thing is all based on ethical values and respect for each other. And that really shows why compassion is so important, so that we can have a safe place, safe communities, and we want the whole, not only just like our own community, but the whole country, whole world. And particularly in their own community, for children to grow healthy, they're safe, they're not, harm. All those things are all part of the ethical practice, and that's very important. We need to have respect to the ethical part. Without respecting ethical practice, there will be chaos. So that's the whole part of the practice of Hinayana practice, based on discipline, ethical practice. And then Buddha never really forced people to practice ethical practice either. For example, like in the ethical practice, not killing, the 4 cardinal things, not killing, no stealing, lying, like that. And so when one enters the Dharma, there is called the layman's vows. So in that one, there's a ceremony. In that ceremony, one says next to one's teacher, or usually like if it's a monastic vow, it can only be taken by a monk. It cannot be given even by a teacher who is not a monk. I cannot give a monk vow. It has to come from a abbot who are monk, for example. So therefore, when one takes the vow, say, from today on, for the rest of my life, it only works for the rest of my life. Physical vows only for the rest of your life. It cannot work for many other lives. Because when you die, when this body is gone, that particular vow goes with it, is dissolved. As far as the celibacy vow is concerned, as far as so you say, I will not kill any being from today onwards. So just one, you think I can handle that? You see, it never say you got to do everything, otherwise you are condemned to hell. It doesn't say like that. So you do what you can handle in your mind, and then step by step. Maybe after a few years, then you want to add up something else. And then after a few years, you want to add up. Or if you couldn't handle that also, then you say, I want to give back the vow. So it's really there's no condemnation. It's just one is encouraged to do. And one is also told the afflictions once you get back, the harm it can cause. But it gives you the choice to make the decision how to approach and how to work with yourself. So like that, one take one kind of vow, 2 kind of vow, 3, depends like that. I took a vow from my teacher not to drink, and that really saves me. Otherwise today I'm diabetic, and in America there's so many good wines. And you can go to a bar, tequila, all kinds of things, and I don't drink. I didn't drink since I was 18 or 19. Because it was really a blessing for me. In Kathmandu one night, I was with my friend, and there was a bottle of whiskey. And he wasn't there much, so I drank almost whole thing. And I thought, now you must be drunk, I told myself. Now go back and go to sleep. So I was walking, those days very few texts, this is 1978, around that. So I was walking, and I was very much aware in my mind, I've drunk, I should be drunk. So then there was a diary. In those days in Kathmandu, there were a lot of diaries. A lot of, hippies. In Kathmandu, it's filled with hippies. They would come and eat cheese and drink milk and orange and peanuts. Those are like hippies. Those days, something like. And I have many hippies friends. They would come and, they would put on the table peanuts and orange, and I get vaccinated how they eat. So then I get to this diary where I normally get some milk, and you can drink the milk like that is cleaner, because I think it's some Swiss company did that. So then when I got there, I stopped. It was around 10 o'clock at night, I think. And then this car stopped. When I go, the car go. When I stop the car, I thought, now you're completely crazy, I told myself. Now you're hallucinating. So then, that was the memory I have. Of course I'm seeing things in my drunk, was strange. Then I went to sleep, and the next morning, every day, I have to go to His Holiness, my teacher, 7 in the morning. Then I went and I told him, I drank, and now I want to take the vow from him. I will not drink for the rest of my life. And he said, wonderful. When you drink, even the most sensible person become insensible. They lose their mind. So it's very good what you drink. But then, I heard those days, drinking beer is good. But I said, can I drink a little bit of beer? He said, doesn't beer make you drunk? I said, only if you drink many, many bottles, otherwise it's good for health. He said, his laugh, he said, okay. So then, of course, the beer in Kathmandu, there was one company called Star Beer. It wasn't tasty at all. I just have a sip once in a while, that's it. Then one time I was doing my retreat, and I thought, my teacher was there, so kind, trying to, be for my well-being. And I was trying to, cheat my teacher by telling him like that. So I stopped that also. So now I only have a little bit when we do the chok. That's important. One is to take the samaya substance. Otherwise I don't drink at all. So that's been really a great blessing for me. So like that, what you can handle. The question is, what you can handle, how you can work with that. Step by step, one needs to work with all the negativities, and so that, you can really look deeper, awareness. Awareness is a mind which is free, like we can see from the example I gave you, the blueberry before you own and after you own, how the minds get influenced. Adventitious how it comes, but inherently not there. If it's inherently there, then you will always be, like anger. So anger doesn't have inherent quality. It's just like a circumstance which gives the, birth to that momentarily. And so therefore we should eliminate that and then go deeper, and finally, then liberation you can see. Definitely there is a liberation. Liberation is not some kind of mythical thing. Liberation truly is there on your awareness. You have that quality primordially, fundamentally in your awareness, that you just have to see that and work with that. And then that has got valid reason. The more stronger you get into that awareness, the more powerful it gets. Like, for example, the more deeper you get into affliction, the more confused it gets, isn't it? The more deeper you get into affliction, and the more confused, we are puzzled all the time, confused all the time, and we just couldn't figure out. And all it just produce is suffering and pain. So therefore, since we all want to eliminate suffering, then the answer is in our mind. It's not outside there. It is said finally, danyi daki goninte. Oneself is the refuge to oneself. That's not right now where there's affliction. Once you remove the affliction and ignorance, then you are your protection. There's no outside there. That's the ultimate refuge. So like the relative refuge and ultimate refuge. Ultimate refuge is within oneself, one's own awareness, free of that deception. Anyway, like that. And then I'd like to read a little bit from today. I thought this is about meditation and, of course, many other things, particularly meditation. This is by Tsoktuk Rangdol. Tsoktuk Rangdol, Tsoktuk is the sixth sense, which in sixth sense is eye sense, and knows and all the sixth sense. Sok truk rangdul, liberation of sixth sense. That, of course, comes from awareness. This was a great, great master. In fact, they say he was the emanation of Milarepa in Tibet. Very, very great teacher. So he wrote, all Buddhas say the cause of perfecting the twofold accumulation of merit and wisdom rests solely in the development of clairvoyance. Those without the power of clairvoyance cannot work for the benefit of all, just as a bird with undeveloped wings cannot soar in the sky. The merit gained in a single day by one with such clairvoyance, even in 100 lifetimes, cannot be obtained by one without. Those who did like to quickly complete the collections and achieve Buddhahood must first achieve clairvoyance, which is won through effort and not by sloth. Without the accomplishment of calm abiding, clairvoyance will not arise. Therefore, make repeated efforts to achieve it. Without the requisite for calm abiding, stabilization will not be won. Even if you were to make great efforts at meditation for 1,000 years, therefore know well the requisite from the requisites for meditative stabilization chapter and place your mind upon a virtuous object. Once a yogi or yogini has achieved calm abiding, clairvoyance will also be there. Therefore, whether it is accumulating merit and wisdom, so what Dr. Randall, the great teacher, he was saying, the clairvoyance comes from calm abiding. So first of all, the practice of shamatha is so important. That's the first step of knowing your mind, through calm abiding. And without a calm abiding, we can also say when our minds are so disturbed, we cannot make a clear decision at all in our life. It can be something people say, cool down before you make it, abrupt. When you're full of anger or something, aggression, you cannot make a clear, good decision. So calm down. It's good to take like 1 day or 2 day rest and think before you make a big decision, either because you're cooled down and able to see things clearly. So, and particularly now knowing about the mind, and we're talking about liberation, first the mind has to be calm, in the calm abiding state. Like the example of our regular pattern of dealing with clearing obstacles, clearing confusion, and clearing our own emotional thing is stirring more emotion. It's like you go on the riverbank and you see a murky water, and your own knowledge, your method of clearing that is making it more like clearing. I want to clear the dirt, and you will stir things more and get more murky. That's how we do things in our daily life. The thing to do is leave it as it is. And when you leave the dust as it is, the dust will settle down, and then you will see the clear water, then you will see the fish and stones and everything clear in the sea. Like that, when you leave the mind as it is in calm abiding, the mind will get clear, and the mind has a clarity notion. Fundamental mind has a clarity which can have the not affliction but perfection of creativity. Able to make the right decision, able to see things clearly, able to have concentration, able to have intuition, able to have clairvoyance. All will come naturally by the mind. Just by simply meditating on shamatha, one can get even full knowledge of reading other people's mind, for example, able to see things clear, or very powerful intuition, or very powerful concentration. If it's a student, able to focus to the study. If it's like whatever one's field of work one has, able to penetrate and able to see things, and at the same time being calm, so there's tremendous benefit. So therefore, clairvoyance is very important. And then he's also talking about like for example, our ethical practice. Right now, it seems that ethical practice is like a burden to many people. I have to enforce myself to doing good, because our minds get so infused with our negative bad habits and pattern. So ethical practice is like, okay, there's something to do with religion. I don't want to, do that. But then in the meantime, you go through the tremendous suffering and depression. All those problems arises. So therefore, when you look at the study, why we need to study the mind, so important, studying all aspects of the mind, if one can. Otherwise, just follow the instruction of the teacher, pointing out the instruction, so that so for example, when you look at the mind has two aspects. Mind has, when you really look, mind has an appearance aspect, and mind has where that appearance arises from, like the space, for example, this space aspect and the appearance aspect. Of course, they're indivisible. They're not like two different things. Here is space, here is arising. The arising itself contains the space. Space itself contains the arising. They're inseparable, like the ocean and the ocean wave. Ocean and the ocean wave looks different, but in essence, they are one. The ocean, the waves come from the ocean. There's no other place for the waves to come from other than ocean itself. And there's no other place for the waves to go other than the ocean itself. It comes from the ocean, it goes in the ocean. Same thing, our mind. Mind is a part where there is, the appearance part is called the interdependent part. This is where interdependent play comes. Interdependent play comes from the appearance part. Nangwa tendil in the Tibetan word. I don't know the Sanskrit word, but the Nangwa tendil means, Nangwa means appearance. Tendil is like interdependent. The appearance is what our phenomenal things happens on that interdependence level. Happiness, sorrow, joy, high, low, middle, whatever, through interdependent. Right? You all are going to, today I think it's wonderful for Buddha Dharma to explain, because people are educated. People went to college, people went to university. You all have the degree of knowledge to pick up and understand. In ancient times, in medieval time, people are like blind-fated. So when people are blind-fated, then it's very difficult to explain, to sit down and let's talk. You just follow what your Lord tells you. You belongs to a lord or duke or, whatever, some lords. Or then you belong to a Catholic church. If you're not, you get burnt or whatever, And so we have all this problem in medieval time. Today, people all go to school, college, university. You learn science. You learn quantum physics. You use your mind. What is the reality? So therefore, in that terms, the Buddha Dharma become very beneficial to look really what is, the objective reality and subjective reality to investigate that. So from that point. So now the appearance is where all interdependent phenomena arises. Where else is going to arise? Your appearance, the one, I want to do good, I want to do this, I want to do it this way, I want to do it that way. Whether it's planting a flower or planting a tree or going to work, it's all interdependent. And then when you see the nature of interdependence, that we live in an interdependent world, then the problem here comes not on the nature of that interdependent or the emptiness. The problem comes when we get fixated to that we don't see as interdependent, rather we see as independent, all phenomena. Because our anger gets so real, our attachment gets so real, our jealousy gets so real, all those affliction comes along with anything you do. Even you're planting a flower and your neighbor started to look, you know, oh, is he trying to criticize me? Is he think, I'm not doing the right way? You see, all these things ready, they're all like ready to sprout there. Anything you do. So that's all those affliction. Then of course it makes you unhappy. Or then you want to go and put some wall and you don't want to do it your way. So just a little bit like that, it just stirs up everything. So therefore, all this problem arises from fixation, like neurosis. That is called neurosis. The definition of neurosis and affliction is that's it. There's no other neurosis than that, So therefore, and that's become the source of all our confusion, daytime pain, nighttime pain, whatever. That fixation becomes the big thing. So therefore, and clearly, when we investigate, that's not really the case. By nature, things are interdependent. Things are not independent as we think, as it seems to appear that way. It appears like very real. My house appears very real, my country and everything. And all the habits, when we say American, we don't just think of our mind and the body, but something else, the whole 54 state I represent, or whatever, So basically this whole thing, baggage, heavily comes with us. We hold on to that. And it's something very fixated. And that is the source. Many things like that comes, like moment to moment to moment. That fixation is the source of our suffering and confusion. And so therefore, by seeing interdependent, one sees the truth. There's a saying, by seeing interdependent, one sees the truth. And the truth is, you see the interdependence devoid of inherent existence. That itself is emptiness when we talk. That is the emptiness. There's no other emptiness, such as like thinking empty. Thinking empty is object. You get fixated there. That's not emptiness. There's a wrong notion of emptiness. So here, interdependent, it means devoid of any inherent existence in that way of looking at it, fixating. So therefore, and then when you see interdependent, you see emptiness. When you see emptiness, you see dependent. Dependent is only possible because if it's emptiness. If it's not emptiness, dependence is not possible. They're like one coin of two sides. Like a drum or like one coin of two sides. Because it's emptiness, therefore it's dependent. Because it's dependent, therefore it's emptiness. They are like in oneness. That is the Buddha's teaching. And that's the nature of reality, nature of life. So therefore, we come to know Buddha's teaching is not based on faith. Buddha's teaching is based on reality, how things are in nature. That is the most important thing, how to approach and understand, and by seeing that within oneself. So therefore, so the problem of this appearance is not the problem. Problem is how we get fixated. For example, in the teaching of meditation, the great Indian master Tilopa told to his heart son Naropa, his principal student, he said, "Oh son, you will not be caught by appearance, you will be caught by clinging to it." It means fixating to it. You see, this is innocent. Sound, sight, smell are innocent. But moment you like that blueberry, you get into it, that's where the suffering comes. You will not be caught by appearance, you will be caught by clinging to it. Whether it's sight, any kind of sight, skyscrapers, whatever, any kind of sight, or sound, smell, you will not be caught by appearance, but you will be caught how your mind cling to it. That's where the neurosis or liberation border is there. That's how you see the clinging is the one which creates fixation. So therefore, in meditation, you learn, your thoughts arises, you allow the thoughts, but you don't go after the thoughts. Make it clear, purify itself of all the defilement, obscuration we build up to clear that naturally by itself. It has the natural process to clear itself. Mind is the natural process to clear itself. And the way to do it, just sit, allow it, and don't have to go run after it. So then you begin to see the deep level of awareness. And then at some point, then we can become like Chhoje Rinpoche, the sixth sense liberation. What come into context becomes liberation. Right now, what come into context becomes like afflictions. It's a very mixed life we have. Some good, some bad, but a lot of things, right? Depends, each person is different. Nobody's same. Some have lighter karma, some have more heavy, some are more compassionate, some are less. That depends on one's own development. But basically, fundamentally, we all have basic goodness. We all have basic goodness, and, because we can see, just from that blueberry example. It's not that how, it's just how you enter into that. That's how it defines, So therefore, nature of the mind itself is clear and free. Is the adventitious stains, affliction, which get habituated, and over time they become so thick that we get completely trapped into that. So there's something like that. So therefore, Chhoje Rinpoche saying, develop clairvoyance. Without clairvoyance, you will not able to have any sense of clear judgment because your mind is so heavily polluted by afflictions. So therefore, and way to do that is start by shamatha meditation, calm abiding. And then when you do calm abiding, you can see after some times, I heard many different stories from different students. Some say before they have fear of flying, and after that, their fear of flying goes away. Or some have distance and calming and the joy and the liberation is like, finally, after all, what we have is this mind. If this mind is not happy, then you can live in a gold house, or you can live in, but nothing really matters then. People, tremendous pain. So therefore, your most precious thing is your mind, and your mind has to be awakened. Otherwise, if your mind gets sunk into, ignorance, and you become the victim, nobody else becomes the victim. You're the only one who is the victim. So therefore, studying, practicing, and meditation becomes so important. So he was talking about the truthful accumulation of merit. Now one thing, merit, there's relative merit and absolute merit. Relative merit is the appearance of the mind. Absolute merit is like the ocean itself. Relative merit, in other words, is like the wave, and absolute merit is like the ocean. So in relative merit, the 6 paramita, 4 immeasurable, all those are practice, ethical practice, compassion practice, are practice on the level of appearance. Then on the absolute level, by seeing its fundamental nature, which is free of all those reference, transcendent reference. So combining that two, then that mind can purify all obscuration and then get exalted, transcended from the realm of cyclic existence. So something step by step you need to look and practice in that way. Now he was also talking about the requisite before, The requisites here, requisites, Requisites are elimination, preparation. It comes from the Meditative Stabilization chapter of the Sutra. It explains in that the requisites are elimination, preparation, resisting, stopping the misery, aversion, recalling the qualities, effort, unifying, and the means of stability. Basically, like, for example, while you're sitting in your meditation, like drowsiness, too much thought, how to deal with them through your mindfulness. The mindfulness is very important here. And without that mindfulness, then those qualities will not arise in your mind. So therefore, those are the requisites. Moreover, the hearer level, hearer is to Hinayana practitioner. Listen, 13 requisites for calm abiding. Which you do well to know these and apply them. Among all these requisites, the most crucial is morality, having few ones, contentment and seclusion. Now, without seclusion, of course, if you don't do like, I think here, seclusion would be like doing meditation on a weekend in your home, for example. Or you go to a mountain, or you go to like do a retreat. That's very important, a weekend retreat, to have deeper connection and deeper knowledge about yourself. Without that, it'll be difficult. Either you, every day, some discipline of 1 hour of sitting meditation, half an hour in the morning, half an hour in the evening, whatever you can. Those are the requisites. Without that, just simply hearing from the teacher 1-2 times is not enough. You need to sit. And then, then also it says the morality here means ethical practice. And you learn about ethical practice, value of precious human rebirth, value of, how to respect all precious human rebirth, and the Bodhisattva teaching and Bodhicharyavatara teaching. These are like profound way of how to look at oneself and other human beings. Otherwise, that I, we saw how the blueberry, example can just come out and destroy everything. You see, this is really where the mindfulness required is this I. Particularly when someone has some problem with you, then your first thought is, how do I get rid of him or her? You see, this is, in one way or another, it comes to us. And those kind of things, even you're able to get rid at that moment, but that consequence, that I still being nurtured, that consequence will come to you, karmic reaction will come to you. As a person, as a community, as a nation. And today, many of our environmental problems, many things happening due to no respect, for example. So therefore, we need to learn about, even you can do harm, but think about the consequence, what will happen to you afterwards. I think that's a very important thing. And what if you just how to deal with that, instead of reacting in a harmful way, the benefit, even you appears to be like you lost the war, but the consequence of the benefit in the long term, for example. There are many ways to deal. I'm not saying you should lose it, but be skillful how you can fix that through really in the right way, compassionate way, and skillful way. I think that's very important, how you deal with it. Whether it's your own self, yourself, mainly we learn that in meditation, the conflict or the Trungpa Rinpoche puts it, the love and hate relationship with oneself and one's projection. That how we get attached to a certain of our thoughts, and how we hate, also don't like, and how we deal with, how we struggle with that, and that how you deal through your sitting practice of meditation, you can deal with that. So anyway, the ethical practice become important in the Hinayana practice. Containment, seclusion means retreat and like that, to develop oneself. So anyway, like that, so clairvoyance, clearly shamatha practice of sitting meditation will bring out clairvoyance. And if there is clairvoyance, then there will become abiding, there will be joy, there will be transcendent. You will be able to deal with all your thoughts, emotion, and to liberation state. If without clairvoyance, then the mind will sunk into a depression, sunk into not knowing, in ignorance, and that consequence is definitely not good. And so therefore we have to work with our mind. So now let's do a little sitting practice. If you need to stretch your leg, maybe you need to stretch your leg for a few minutes, and then we will do it. If you have any questions, we can have question answer period.
Hi, Rinpoche. It was really interesting to hear you speak about clairvoyance. I haven't heard much of that in the Buddhist context. And I know I've heard about it in more like the psychic community and talking about the 7 clairs. There's also like clairsentience, clairaudience. I can't remember all the other ones, but I'm just trying to understand when you talk about, because I know a lot of people who are clairvoyant who don't actually meditate. So I'm wondering if part of it is, from a Western perspective, we haven't really been taught clearly how reality actually works. So I guess I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit more about that relationship of how we develop it within ourselves.
I think, in India and in Asia, Buddhism, after Buddha Shakyamuni, who introduced the teaching on meditation, the meditation technique and the teaching on meditation is spread widely in Asia. So there's a lot more understanding of the mind. In the West, meditation is not really there, though there are some level of meditation in Christianity as a religion, because from the medieval time, the place to learn about mind, it's the religious place in Europe. And you can see in America, when the settlers came here, they brought the church with them. So, but in the teaching of Christianity, there's a practice of meditation such as recitation of Hail Mary, and there must be some level, but not to the depth of what Buddhism teaches about mind and meditation. So I heard a number of Christian priests learning about Zen meditation or Buddhist meditation like that, because that's something, a new domain which didn't exist here. As far as in Asia, before Buddhism, Hinduism also had meditation. Before Buddhism was Hinduism. And Hinduism teaches about the shamatha meditation also. And in that, they developed a lot of clairvoyance. But clairvoyance alone, you see, from the Buddhist point of view, clairvoyance is a stepping stone to understand the clear light. Clairvoyance is not clear light, or it depends how you use the terminology. Because from the clear lights means awakened mind, like clear intuition and clairvoyance. Someone who's very clairvoyant can sense, very sensitive, and can know things rightly, not to know things the wrong way. That can also happen. Some may claim my clairvoyance, but sometimes people get very confused between imaginations and appearance. For example, in the in Buddhist teaching, when it says, like if one goes through like Vajrayana practice, like a deity practice, like Dakini practice. So when you practice the deity, one can have a visual appearance of the deity very clearly, like you're seeing me. And then that's called the visual appearance. Then there is something called nyam, experiential. In nyam, it happens normally like between half sleep and half awake. You begin to have a vision of that, for example. And then one is dream. So from those, it tells about, your particular practice, or your knowing about your life. Basically knowing about your life, regardless whether they actually parents or half dream, half state, awake, half awake, you're seeing things. Or in your dream, it's basically telling you about your state of mind or about your particular practice you're doing to achieve certain things. But sometimes I've seen certain Western students, they cannot differentiate between an imagination. They have an imagination very strong, but they think it's a vision. So, you see, that's kind of a wrong clairvoyance. So therefore, there are many different levels, basically all about knowing your state of life, knowing your state of mind. At that point, that's what's happening. So now, through the sitting practice of meditation, you develop very calm abiding. You're able to supple your mind or subdue your mind, negativities. But you didn't eliminate negativities. You have subdued. Right now, most emotion dealing is suppressing. We may not particularly like that word, but indirectly it's suppress. And moment a circumstance arises, it will flare up. As long as the circumstance doesn't come up, it seems to be okay. As long as you don't touch, you don't leave it, it's okay. So we say, today you're going to see your grandmother, be gentle with her. Don't raise your flare-up, things like that, whatever. So it doesn't mean that, she has eliminated or you've eliminated aggression, but, it could spark. It all takes a circumstance. So right now, most of people's day-to-day living, is like indirectly some level of suppression. We said that person is kind, That's the best way we can compliment a sentient being. But Buddhas will not be called kind. We don't say, oh, that person is awakened or enlightened. That person, we say, is kind. So basically, it's as a notion of some level of suppression taking all the time. It's not perfect, but there is something still there. And that's what, for example, we do it when we get angry. How do we resolve our anger? We try to reason that. And by reasoning, oh, she's been kind to me, I shouldn't be like this, I should let go, this is not good for me, this is not good for her. In that way you suppress that particular emotion which, stir up, and then you resolve that. But that didn't mean you've eliminated. Elimination can only happen by realizing emptiness. It cannot happen by emotion. Emotion dealing with emotion, right now, that's it. That's what you do when you go to psychiatrists, psychologists, all dealing with emotion, dealing with emotion. So same thing, practice of clairvoyance is not enlightening. Clairvoyance is seeing things much clearly without much disruption of strong affliction. But still, the afflictions are there. So to transcend affliction, one is to really realize emptiness. That's the wisdom mind. That's called wisdom mind. There's non-dual mind. There's no dualistic mind. Dualistic mind is always conflicting. It can only deal with suppression. It cannot deal with liberation on a fundamental level.
Hi, Rinpoche. I had two questions about books. First, what was the name? Can you show us the cover of the book that's next to you?
This is called the Emanated Scripture of Manjushri. I can pass this to you. Genevieve, can you? Yeah. Wolfgang, please show this to you. Thank you.
The other question was a reference to books by Mipam Rinpoche.
Yes.
I believe you said it was gateway to...
Entering the gateway to the learned ones. Entering the gateway, if I'm correct.
I believe I have the translation of English into that, and I think it's called, this isn't to contradict you, but I think they called it in English, Gateway to Knowledge. And they have 4 volumes that are these thin little books. I don't know if you've seen them, but they're quite nice. They have the Tibetan translation on the left side and the English on the right side.
Okay, that could be it. Yeah.
Yeah, Rinpoche, I did find it on Amazon that way.
Oh, that's called what is it called?
Gateway to Knowledge.
Great Way to Knowledge. Okay, the same thing. Okay. Yeah, that's very good book. That's very good book. I will give someday, normally one need a transmission. I will give transmission on the text someday to all of you. It's a like complete book on the knowing about from the 3 basket of knowledge, which is Vinaya, and then Sutra and Abhidharma. It is a complete inclusion of all of those, that like a map.
Rinpoche, there was the question that I brought to you at the beginning of the teaching.
Yes. So the question here is a question about helping a loved one who has departed. My mother recently passed on from this worldly life into a new realm. During her lifetime here, she did not receive the various kinds of help and support to the extent that she really needed. What are some ways going onward in which I can help her so that she may have deeper calm and peace and joy and fulfillment? Yeah, not just this question, but I want to, earlier in my teaching, I want to say one more thing. When we were talking about reincarnation, from previous life to present life to future lives and life to lifetimes continuity, the continuity is based, as I said, is not just on brain, but the brain needs something to trigger, and that is the consciousness, that is the mind, awareness. So therefore, when we talk about the continuity of reincarnation, life after life goes from here, is the mind. That particular, it has to be, reincarnation is based on the continuity, and continuity is based on awareness, on mind. That's, I want to say that. And that mind, when we say, how is the nature of the mind? Is not an object. Mind is, if it's an object, what color is the mind? What shape is the mind? So those questions come. One is to investigate and look and completely come to conclusion. Clearly, no doubt left. Like we said, no stone left unturned. Everything you have to see. This is it. And then, so today, like the brain neuroscience, and they all try to look for the mind, they couldn't see the mind. Mind is not an object. So that mind is the continuity of the reincarnation. Is based on the continuity. Continuity is based on the awareness, on the mind. So I want to say that. So here then question someone who's departed. Departed means just simply left this body. I mean, when a person dies, in fact, one doesn't even know one is dead because the consciousness continues. And only when one begins to see your breakfast is not served, and people are crying, when you see, then you begin to wonder, the so-called death has come to me, then you begin to know that. So death is death is a process of changing this form. You leave this form, and then you enter the next form based on your cause and effect, based on your karma. So you can be born into animal. A human can be born into animal can be born into human, and the whole sixth realm, it will just evolve based on your cause and effect, on that awareness, on that consciousness. For example, on this same body, when you get so angry, you get so disturbed, and then after a few days you think you feel ashamed to yourself, like being in a very low realm. And then the same body, the same emotion, you did something great, and you can take joy and encourage yourself how you can benefit being. So you see, which is like the higher rebirths, like humans and gods, devas realm, like that. So it's all how we imprint on this consciousness is what the phenomena appears, high or low or whatever. So therefore, the continuity is not an objective. Continuity is a consciousness, and consciousness is, there's a saying also. If you say mind doesn't exist, it is everything what you experience. If you see where is the mind, even Buddhas have not seen it as a physical thing. It's not a physical thing. If it's a physical thing, today's science would have, with all the machines and technology, they would have seen very clearly, here's the mind, and it's in here, lying here. No, it's not at all. You look into your four elements, water element, all our bloods, earth element, all our bones, and then fire element, all our heat, wind element, different levels of 5 kinds of wind, upper wind, middle wind, the lower wind, and then the general wind. There are 5 different levels of wind. So wind is like empty. So in neither of the 4 elements you find the mind. And you don't find the mind as an object in the atom, in the tiniest, that fundamental atom. When we go, there's no thing as some kind of object. Yet it is everything. Yet we experience, colors and joy and pain and suffering. All where those come is based on how we imprint that mind with what cause and effect, good or bad. And that, like a projector, in that manifests. And not only in the gross phenomena of daytime, but at nighttime also, based on a very, a person, a very uncompassionate person will probably experience nighttime also a lot of fightings and killing and things like that. And person with lots of compassionate may experience mostly, a more gentle dream. So that's also how the mind projects based on your habit and your development. And now then final question is, what is really the nature of the mind? What is mind? Where is mind? That, step by step, that's how, through the teaching of Mahamudra finally, and Dzogchen teaching, it explained about, called the nature of the mind. Very, very powerful, nature of the mind. So here, as far as the departed soul, like for example, today's Father's Day celebration. Father's Day celebration, children, grateful to their parents. In this day is particularly Father's Day. So what the fathers work hard to bring up, take care of the family, give education and love and care, all those things. So it's appreciation, and probably people buy a cake or flower, I don't know, but something like that. Flower, something beautiful to appreciate, Father's Day. So we dedicate that day. Same thing, and the dedication is powerful. Dedication really, the father feels is interdependent. Dedication, the father feels more love as acknowledgement by his children of like how they appreciate, and the father will do more. That's interdependent phenomena. And same thing like when somebody's dead, we do dedication. We do dedications such as like, for example, I always recommend life-saving dedication. Because from immemorial time until now, we have done lots of harm through physical aspect. We have beaten people, we've kicked people, we've killed people, we've do hunting, we did all kinds of things over the life periods of time. That karma will, is all on your mind. It's gonna come sooner or later. Like the eagle can fly high in the sky, its shadow may not appear right now, but sooner or later the eagle has to come down and its shadow will appear. Likewise, one's karma, whoever is created, good and bad, it will only mature on the consciousness which is created, not on the earth, not on the water, not on the mountain. It will not mature there. It will mature on the consciousness where this particular body beholds. So if you're an animal, you go through by eaten by other animals, or bigger ones eaten by small one eaten by bigger, all those karmic debts. So much karmic debts when you really look this cycle of life, so much suffering, So if you look at the ocean, I mean, we sit in our living room, looks very nice in the big Samsung TV screen, and you're drinking a beer and, watching how a small fish being eaten by a big one, and how the Chinese, some restaurant, the chef make a live fish fried in oil and then everyone eating with the chopsticks, or, I didn't mean no offense to Chinese people. There are lots of wonderful people, but just I'm talking about some people, how they do things. So we all do things like that. So in that way, those karma, whatever one creates, will mature on that consciousness. Buddha said it will not mature on the earth or mature on other people, but it will mature on that consciousness which beholds that body. The body which beholds that consciousness, it will mature on that. So we have to be very respectful, careful of our karma, because your appearance, as far as the appearance of life is concerned, is based on your karma. Good and bad karma. High or low, middle, all based on karma. So we have to be very respectful of cause and effect. It's inexorable. It will never deceive. Karma will come to the point, whatever good or bad, it will mature on that person. So we have to be very respectful. There's Buddha's teaching, very important on that. As far as relative phenomena is karma. Absolute phenomena is the nature of emptiness. Yeah. Okay? Thank you. So let's do a world peace prayer. In the world in general and in this nation, may not the names, disease, famine, war, and suffering be heard. May virtues, qualities, and merit and prosperity greatly increase. And may continuous good fortune and sublime well-being perfectly rise. In the world in general and in this nation, may not even the names, disease, famine, war, and suffering be heard. May virtues, qualities, and merit and prosperity greatly increase. And may continuous good fortune and sublime well-being perfectly rise. In the world in general and in this nation, may not even the names, disease, famine, war, and suffering be heard. May virtues, qualities, and merit and prosperity greatly increase. And may continuous good fortune and sublime well-being perfectly rise. By this merit, may all beings gain omniscience, thus defeat the neuroses which are the enemy. From the turbulent waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death.
From the ocean of cyclic existence, may all beings be liberated.
Thank you. So one thing about this question, one should do a life-saving and dedicate it in her name or his name. And in that way, they receive that merit, and that will purify that, that particular negative karma. Karma can be purified. The good thing about karma, no matter how bad it is, it can be purified. Because not inherent quality is interdependent. So any interdependent, we can heal. We are injured, we can put an ointment, we can take medicine, we can get healed. Same thing with the karma. Just a question of how deep the karma is, you know. So even deep karma can be purified. Nothing is not, everything is workable. Yeah. But you need to strength to work with that. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Rinpoche. Just a few announcements before everybody goes. So Rinpoche only has 5 more teachings and events before he heads out again. So this coming Friday, he'll be teaching in the evening, and then on Sunday, and then there's 3 other events, and then he leaves on July 5th. So I just want to encourage everybody to take this opportunity to be here whenever you can. And if you can't be here in person, then we are going to be live streaming all of them. If you want to see the events, it's on our website. And we also send out emails. So if you're not on our email list, there's a sign-up form right outside the shrine room doors here on the right. So I encourage you to sign up there. That's our main form of communication. And then I wanted to just bring up that Rinpoche has been offering all of these teachings free of charge while he's here. And we're a 100% volunteer organization. There's no paid staff, but it does cost a lot of money to keep this building up and running. And we also support Rinpoche's health insurance and his food while he's here. So if you want to make an offering directly to Rinpoche, there's a box outside the shrine room door, and then there's another box that supports the center. But the best way you can support us is becoming a member. I know most of you already are, so thank you if you are. And if you're not a member, please consider you can be a member for $5 a month, and everything really helps. There's another way that you guys can help that I've never brought up before, and it's just kind of surfaced. Somebody brought it up to me, is that we have over 150 teachings on YouTube. And we almost have 1,000 subscribers. We're at like 936 right now. When we get to 1,000 subscribers and a few more viewing hours, then YouTube will start to pay us every time that somebody watches Rinpoche's teachings. So it's a great way to support the center, and it's an amazing way to continue hearing Rinpoche's teachings. So we have teachings all the way back to 2017 on YouTube. So you just go to the Padmasambhava Meditation Center channel and hit subscribe. And then you can watch all of his teachings from the past, and that'll help us get up to that 1,000 level and some more viewing hours. So just a cool thing you can do to help us out. I think that's it. Thank you, Rinpoche. Your YouTube stuff.